This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Care Notes with Douglas Wilber from, oh my gosh, I did it
Companions.
again. Wow, we just did too much talking, everybody, before the show from Cherished Companions. And I'm so glad we are together today because as we were talking before, things are changing in the industry very quickly, and especially here in Ohio. So
Yeah,
give us a little
Ohio.
information.
Yeah, Ohio just recently passed licensure, and we were part of the licensure discussions and other things with the Home Care Association of America, and I'm proud to be vice chair of the Ohio chapter. But we, now it's kind of coming to life. So there have been some delays in getting it implemented. Unfortunately, for the Ohio Department of Health, they've had other things that they were also assigned, and I think only so much capacity. And so what ended up happening is that this bill they're trying to probably get done. I mean, this is the impression in 6 weeks, what might have otherwise, been 6 months or something. So they're under, I feel bad for them because they're under pressure to get things done quickly. And I'm fresh off some meetings this week that have talked about what licensure is going to look like. They're still in the comment phase, or roughly in the comment phase of what needs to be done. But, this is how quickly things are going to have to come together, because as of August 15th, that's when we first put in the application, and or it's going to open up to put in the application. And then by October 1st is when, from everything that I know, is when licensure is, then now implemented, and you'll either be in compliance or out of compliance, depending on whether you got your application in prior to that time. So it's there's a Chinese curse. May you live in exciting times, and I think right now everything seems to be in exciting times, right. In our world, and then in industries and in our industry as well. So the practical application of licensure, reason the Home Care Association was in favor of licensure is to bring some standards and to it, so that you don't have fly-by-night folks, where there can be abuse and other things that can happen. And it is going to affect even people that are small. If you have a couple clients ongoing, you're supposed to be licensed. So you really, I think it's important for people in Ohio to make sure that the folks that they're getting in their house have that licensure. Okay.
Absolutely.
Period. That's just my opinion. You want a licensed organization. You don't want someone that's trying to fly underneath, things. And you really should have proof that they are licensed. One of the things that is important is a lot of times they're, even like long-term care insurance, one of the first things they ask us is if you have a license. Right. And so, it's important for, processing and doing other things if you have long-term care insurance. But I think just for consumer protection, it'll be an important thing. You want to make sure that happens. And if someone, I feel, and there are a lot of ethical people that are just, individually trying to help someone out, and, maybe have one client. But the fact is it's usually those small operations where I fear more, because they don't have, generally, I mean, there may be some exception, but, they're not necessarily incorporated. They don't have Workers' comp insurance always are trying to fly under the radar. They're not carrying liability insurance. If they were to do something that would be, theft or other things, they don't have that theft protection or whatever in probably the vast majority of cases. I'm speaking a little bit off the top of my head, but I'm pretty confident
Sure,
about what I'm
right.
saying. And is it really worth that? Is that worth having someone that doesn't? And the licensure has certain requirements, and so I think it's wise for people to do it. So but it is going to mean change, and change is one of those things that's important for an organization. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to say, what do they require? How do we handle this? And then get everything done and stuff and stay in compliance. And that really requires a flexible organization with a commitment to do things right and get through that change and be all the better at the end of getting through it, rather than being stumbled, or having a stumbling block by doing that. The other thing is, as I look at my crystal ball, there's a pretty strong indication that we're moving into a recession. And the recession that we're going to be moving into or are there, I mean, it's an acknowledgement when they actually say it of something that's already in existence,
Right.
is probably going to be confirmed this week. We're in a recession, and there's certain things that define a recession, and all the indicators right now say we're there.
Right.
And again, the government's probably going to confirm that, unless there's some shenanigans where they redefine something, and that's not good either. All I can say is if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And you and I are old enough to remember the late 70s, and this is what it looks a lot like, is that late 70s time period. The problem with moving into that is that kind of raises the possibility that instead of having a soft landing, we may have a hard landing.
Right.
In other words, the recession may be deep, and it may be a little bit longer than what we're used to. And the problem is right now the federal government is chasing the situation that for many reasons has come into play, but we spent a little bit like a drunken sailor, and there's a lot of things that kind of the supply chain and other things, and it's the perfect storm that created a situation where we have inflation, and now they're putting the brakes on the economy. And it's a very delicate thing. If the Fed doesn't do it absolutely perfect, and maybe even if they do it absolutely perfect, we may slip into that bigger thing.
Right.
And what that translates into is pain. We know that inflation, and I'm glad they're trying to get it in control. Inflation hurts people who are older, and because they're on fixed incomes, and frankly, it hurts everyone, because if you have uncertainty, it causes people to do dumb things.
Absolutely.
And you're trying to spend ahead of inflation, and there are a lot of things that can happen, and it distorts markets, and there's it's just not good. And so the thing with this is to understand that we as a company are really committed to the people that we are serving, and And so I'm going to talk personally as an organization. We're trying to anticipate what's going on. We're trying to figure out ways to be fair to our clients, our caregivers, and others. So raise wages so that we get good people, and so they're able to keep up with inflation. Not charge an arm and a leg to our clients, so they're able to afford care. And so strategically, we're trying to look across the board and say, what can we do? One of the things that we've always done, and I think this is one of the things that helps, is we try to say, what can we do to save money for
Sure.
our clients? So there are some very specific things that we do, and it starts with working with the client. And I know that we've talked or at least hinted at this, but that understanding that each client is unique, each need is unique, and then try to figure out how we can work with, say, what can the family do? If it's a cost thing, and we'll just go with cost,
Sure.
What can the family do? What can we do? What can technology do? I recently went with a client, and they one of the things that they had another company in there, and that other company was serving them, but they were having hiccups. I think they were having staffing issues and other things. And again, we try to anticipate by staying ahead of the staffing.
Right.
So we tend not to have staffing issues in the same way that a lot of companies do. In the sense that we are usually, able to backfill, get someone in if there are any issues, and keep that. But here was one of the things is, we're trying to figure out, well, what are the needs, and is there anything we could do to help them in this situation? And I heard about a new technology. It was, basically for a female, and where we could use a device that basically pulls off the urine it kind of uses a pad and pulls off the urine at night, so that someone doesn't have to get up to go to the bathroom when it goes to urine. So that can allow us to do other things. Whereas if the person was getting up every 2 hours, it'd be a different way of serving them. And this way, we may be able to save them a tremendous amount of money, by kind of thinking that through. So, a part of this is, doing the right things for others and trying to say, what can we do to make that difference, and how can we save money rather than what's the max I can get out of this person.
Exactly.
And I think oftentimes that's one of the biggest surprises people have, is when we come in to do an evaluation or whatever, is we're not doing that. There's nothing in our DNA that tries to do that, as far as an organizationally. And it's really what can we do to help you stay at home and do it. So, figuring out ways creatively, and that may become a bigger issue as time goes on. It also helps with, managing resources, is, meaning, if there's limited supplies of caregivers, we're going to have to think in that mindset, and the whole industry is going to have to think with that mindset much more than what is currently happening, and that's when you have care as your focus. You do that, and and then have a good business model so you remain profitable. So the profits are important because that pays the bills. As far as but it doesn't start with profits. It starts with care, and that other piece supports you in being able to provide the care.
this whole
So,
situation, I mean, it really is a catch-22. As a family member, you might feel like, I can't take care of my loved one. Okay. I have to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. Um, and so then you reach out to your services and, sometimes we get shell shocked because we have no concept of what care is going to cost. Um, and so one of the things that I've realized is that if you can share some of that responsibility, and some of that responsibility may be very easy, not having somebody in at mealtime, you have your meal with your loved one.
mhm,
And in finding different ways of doing things, because we're all trying to save a buck,
right.
but we can't put you, if we put you out of business because we're trying to save a buck, um, I don't think our loved ones are going to get the total care that they need either. Because I mean, I know what I could do for my mother, but I also had backup. And that's why I could do as much as I did.
Yeah, honestly, I can say this with pretty um, pretty strong conviction that two things. Number one, generally people have a little bit of shock with the price of getting care until they've priced out what care is,
Right.
and
Exactly.
then we seem like a bargain. And the second thing is, if anyone is less expensive for us, watch out, because we, from scale and other things, um, are going to be as low as you can get and still be doing a quality product. And I feel really pretty strongly about that, just I know what our philosophy, I know what our margins are, I know what we try to do, I know the structure that is needed, to do good care and to afford different things that we afford. And just knowing that, all of that, it then comes down to, okay, what, how would someone make that money? And they're going to be making it on someone else's back in
Absolutely.
that case, or they're going to make it because they're not doing certain things the way they're supposed to do and have this like internal staff the way they should, or something like that. So I have a pretty strong confidence in that. But the thing that I think from an organizational standpoint that makes a difference in times of changing is this idea, which is we have to change. We know it's going to be painful because no matter what, change is difficult. It just is.
Right.
And as we make those changes, we have a solid and a very, very deep commitment to stay with our principles and what we stand for as a company, number one, and then to work through the process of actually implementing that change in a way that makes things better for our clients. And the way we do that, is that decommitment to seek out what isn't going right. What are the needs? What isn't going right? What is going right? And then to adapt, say, what do we need to do now? What do we need to do now? And then constantly looking at that thing that, is our problem, or or what our process is, and improving it until we feel like it's really good, and then continue to improve it as time goes on. But getting at that point where we feel very strongly that, yeah, this is good, this is what is going to make the difference. And I think that is where an organization, and as we see some of the challenges that are moving forward, what do we need to do? How are we going to handle this? And how are we going to do it largely organizationally? Where, how do we make those decisions in such a way that we really get the process down right, for our clients. So,
So
but
the question of
go.
licensure, is there going to be somewhere as a consumer, I can see what those regulations are so that I can identify if my service is upholding them?
Oh, yeah. You know what? There are going to be certain requirements that the state is going to have, and they may not have them all initially, but they will come. Certain things like who do you contact if you're not getting satisfaction, stuff like that, I think will, be a part of this, just because it's the way that the organizationally it should be structured, and I think they will get there. So if well, you like and a process of being able to do it. So you should be able to reach someone and talk through a problem. And if you can't do that, who then do you call? And I think the state will eventually publish the thing when you can't organizationally get to a point of at least talking through something, because again, a poor organization, what will oftentimes happen is, it's great until you have a problem, and then it's not so great,
Exactly.
that you can't talk to them about resolving a bill or whatever it is. And that's, and frankly, the market kind of works through that, I think, generally, because of the fact that you will always have organizations that do it very well and organizations that do it poorly. And I think over time, the ones that do it poorly will eventually go out of business.
Exactly.
But there's so many kind of home care companies that there's a lot to go out of business. And that's what we find is, we've been in business 13 years, and which is, we're ancient in home care, years. It's, if it was dog years, or whatever, we'd be 90 years old, as far as, because home care hasn't been around for long. I mean, it's just as a business, at least. So, a lot of companies come and then they go, and a lot of reasons that they go is because they don't do it well. They just aren't functioning in a good way. And so I think that, knowing that, I do think someone's longevity in business, does make a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that because at least they have a track record. At least they've been around long enough so that the market didn't wean them out, in that case. Again, I think that anytime you have change, like, for example, if we move into a recession, especially if it's a deep recession, you're going to see transition. You're going to, especially if you have someone who, organizationally, there are the last 3 years have been, literally some of the most trying in anyone who is owning a business's life, and in home care times 20, because of taking care of people and the challenges and worrying about your staff having getting COVID or spreading COVID, and all those issues, has created a tremendous amount of stress. Now, if you tag on, a recession with it, you really have to have a limber organization, an organization committed to change, that's going to be able to survive that. And I really think that it's likely that this is going to be, one of those times where it's a washout period. So, it seems silly, but if you're expecting, especially to have a long-term relationship with an organization, you need to know that they're prepped, and kind of committed, and at least have the foresight to see, hey, this is coming down the pike, this is coming down the pike, and being able to like adapt to that, and I'll lose half the audience probably, but it's like sports, if the ball comes to the other side of the court, you need to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you may not be expecting it to be there, but if that's where it's at, you need to go there, and I do think that, kind of bleeding this analogy, you need to also anticipate that it might go there, so you're ready if it does go there, and
in your case, most of your clients are elderly, and typically as we get older, change is something that we do not adapt well to. So,
right.
That's something that you're going to have to, and I know you will be very in tune with that. Not only do you have the client, but you have the client family who's saying, mom or dad do not like change, don't mess it up. And it's like, it's not really messing it up, it's changes that have to be made.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, well, one of the things that I guess I want to wrap up with is, maybe this was a little bit, not so much a warning, and, I obviously want to people to know that there are things on the horizon. Of course, it feels like, is there one more thing that we're now dealing with? Is it going to be monkeypox?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is, it's just knowing that it is. But I think for us, and if someone's watching us who's interested in us specifically, just know that organizationally we're anticipating things, we're working with things, and we're trying to figure out how these next things that we're dealing with are going to be playing out, and the fact is you have to look first and kind of try to seek to understand with anything in life, and if you anticipate those things, hopefully you'll be a little bit better prepared to actually deal with what's going on, and anticipate solutions to possible problems for our clients, so as well as our workers. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Love to hear any feedback from anyone that's watching this, but I appreciate the time to let my thoughts come out. So
I appreciate it as well, and let's be aware and let's make some obvious changes that will help all of us.
thanks.
Have a great day.
Take care, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.